The cold breath of Chomolungma, an ascent into dread. The last coffee. The air at Camp 4th, the South Col, was a miserable 26,000 feet above sea level. It was a world of rock, ice, and tattered tents whipped raw by the relentless wind. Mr. Suss sat hunched inside his tent, nursing a mug of lukewarm, freeze-dried coffee that tasted like burnt plastic and hope. "You look, peaked, Suss," said his guide, a Sherpa named Tenzing, checking the seals on Mr. Suss's primary oxygen tank. Tenzing spoke with a calm, almost bored efficiency, a man long accustomed to the madness of this place. Mr. Suss offered a tight, forced smile. "Just the altitude, and maybe I should have packed more instant noodles. Everything tastes like dust." He looked up at the slope, a steep, dark ramp leading toward the invisible summit. Above 27,000 feet, the world ceased to be merely dangerous. It became actively, maliciously hostile. This was the death zone. He knew the statistics. For every 3 climbers who successfully reached the top, 1 died on the descent. But he didn't feel fear. He felt a strange, detached confidence, the kind that whispers you're the exception to the rule. He was an experienced alpinist. He was strong, and he had poured every last cent, every last ounce of ambition into this single night. Tenzing finished his check, zipped up the tent flap, and gave him a grave look. "Remember what I said, Mr. Suss. The summit is optional. Getting down is mandatory. And if you hear anything strange, anything that doesn't belong to the wind or the ice..." Tenzing paused, his usual professional composure wavering for just a second. "Don't look." Mr. Suss laughed it off, a dry, rasping sound. "I promise to keep my eyes on the rope, Tenzing." The beginning of the end. Hours later, the climb had become a pure meditative agony, a rhythm of 3 steps, a deep gulp of bottled air, and 3 more steps. Mr. Suss had left the lights and the living behind at the South Kernel. The world had shrunk to the immediate glow of his headlamp. It was in this claustrophobic, monochrome darkness, somewhere above the south summit and approaching the dreaded balcony, that the meditation was shattered. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the sound of his own heavy breathing. He heard it, a sound no glacier should make, not the deep geological groan of ice settling, but a sharp, clean crack, like dry bones snapping. He looked up. Nothing. Just the endless, indifferent stars. But the cold had suddenly intensified. Not just the physical cold, but a chilling sense of being profoundly, maliciously unwanted. Now turning back, defeated by the altitude and fatigue, and descending slowly, he heard it again. Closer. Crunch, crunch, the cold breath of Chomolungma. It was the unmistakable sound of a crampon on frozen snow, a rhythmic, steady tread. But there was no one ahead of him. His climbing partner, Sarah, was half an hour below him, waiting at the South Kernel. The last team to pass them had done so 6 hours ago, on their ascent. Mr. Suss stopped, the movement feeling like a violent effort. He stood on the edge of the death zone, alone, surrounded by the silent, frozen ghosts of climbers past. He killed his headlamp. The darkness rushed in, absolute and suffocating, punctuated only by the whistle of the wind, or was it a sigh? Crunch, crunch. The footsteps were coming down the fixed ropes toward him. They were too slow, too deliberate, the pace of a man who was already tired, already defeated, but who had an impossible certainty about his destination. A faint, sickly green glow appeared in the void above. It wasn't the powerful beam of a modern headlamp. It was a diffuse, eerie luminescence, like old radium on a watch dial, illuminating something small and indistinct. Mr. Suss fumbled for his oxygen mask, his fingers numb. He forced himself to look up. The figure stepped into the edge of the glow. It wore tattered, neon-yellow downsuit, an ancient design from the 82nds, and no mask, no goggles, exposing a face that was more a sculpture of frostbite than flesh. The skin was mottled gray and black, pulled taut over the bone. It didn't look cold. It looked unburdened by the cold. But it was the eyes that froze the blood in Mr. Suss's veins. They were wide open, crystalline and clear, staring through him with an expression of serene, utterly final resignation. And on its back, instead of a pack, was a length of rope, a lifeline, snapped clean, the frayed end dangling down. Crunch. The figure was right above him. Then, a voice, a whisper like ice dust sliding off rock, scraped its way into Mr. Suss's mind, not through his ears, but through the deep, desperate fear in his soul. "It's time to rest now. We've been waiting." Mr. Suss felt a terrifying exhaustion wash over him, a pull more powerful than gravity. His knees buckled. He suddenly wanted to lie down, to close his eyes, to become part of the mountain. He knew this was the mountain speaking, the final, cold embrace of Chomolungma, claiming another soul. He screamed, a dry, strangled sound that the wind instantly swallowed, and threw himself sideways, scrambling, blindly back down the treacherous slope, away from the dead man and the sickly green light. He didn't look back. He just ran, until his lungs burst and his heart hammered against his ribs like a desperate prisoner. He ran, not toward the South Col, but away from the slow, steady, inevitable crunch of a crampon he knew would follow him all the way down. He had seen a ghost, and the ghost hadn't been lost. it had been hunting. For further more stories, PLS like and subscribe to my YouTube channel.